Oh, hello, friends. Welcome to Mazaru 41. Episode 2, The Plant Table. So during the winter here, it gets freaking cold, and our plants like to come inside. Sometimes they end up looking pretty silly. I wanted the plants to have a cleaner house, so I decided to make something like this. Actually, exactly like that. Alright, let's go. So I finally invested in a planer, which is pretty exciting. No more wonky, warpy boards to deal with. I like it. Here's my sweet track saw. So in this part I had an issue while breaking down the boards. It kept getting stuck. The tension from the boards while it was being cut was causing it to hang up on the blade, which is a little sketchy. But the little spacer right there helps it right on through. I needed thicker material than what I had, so I decided to glue these two together. I like the glue up noises. Not so much the drill. And in come the clampy clamps. So I let that sit overnight, and then we started working on the legs. To get the right angle, I set the blade and the miter gauge both to about 2.5 degrees. And then once those were cut, I wanted them tapered, so I built this quick jig and ran them through. For each one, just try to make sure that you're cutting the right side. I may or may not have messed this up. I did. I messed it up. Once I corrected my mistake, I put them together using dowels. Dowels I've never had much luck with, but somehow I got this one to work pretty good. So the little handheld drill guide actually comes in pretty handy. It's a little wobbly, but it'll get the job done. At first, gluing up these angled legs was a little bit tricky, but then I remembered I had those offcuts from when I made that little jig, and this actually worked out perfectly. So after letting those dry, I decided to give the outer edges about a 1/2 inch round over, and then the interior of the legs, I gave it a 45-degree chamfer. I did the same with the top, putting the round over on the top and then a 45-degree chamfer underneath. I'm not quite sure why I'm obsessed with having the round over and then the harsher 45-degree. I just think it looks cool. And then, of course, we sand and sand. I had to sand the whole thing. It was bananas. To attach the top and the legs, I decided to use threaded inserts. And so here I just did a little recess and drilled all the way through so the screws would be hidden. I hadn't used threaded inserts before this project, but turns out they're super easy. I just used a brad point bit to go straight through the pre-drilled holes, and then drilled those out using that, well, you remember that thing. It's a little wobbly, but it works. Then you just use an Allen key to put in the inserts, and then a different Allen key to screw in the bolts. Actually, I almost forgot. For the aprons and the spacer between the legs, to cut those, I kept the blade on the saw at the 2.5 degrees and put the miter back to a 90-degree cut. So then when you put the legs on like this, they would have that angle still. And there's those offcuts again. I like it. So I wanted to reinforce the legs because they're really just glued on there. So I decided to use dowels again, but these ones I actually wanted to see. So I just drilled all the way through. This way is much easier. It also helps if you're in your pajamas. And now it's time for some tippy taps. After the tips and the taps, gotta clean it up a little bit. And now for good idea and real sketchy. The playing card bit I like. The finger placement, not so smart. Don't do that. You did it again. A little better. Good job. Put it all together, put on some water-based polyurethane, and I think it looks pretty good. Especially after staring at this monstrosity for too long. Well, I'm thrilled with the way that this came out. Anyways, thanks for checking it out. I hope you like it. Easy root. Oh, what? Good job.